There she is, there she is, there's what keeps me up at night. Oh gee whiz, there's why I can't eat a bite. Those flaming eyes, that flaming youth. Oh mister, oh sister, tell me the truth.
Greetings, fellow investigators, and welcome to our video podcast, Into the Darkness, where my friends and I play the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. I'm your host, Tom Rayleigh. The scenario is Reeling Midnight. It was written by Tom Lynch, and it's included in a collection called New Tales of the Miskatonic Valley. Our game master is Tyler Hudak, and this is episode 1. So without any further delay, let's begin our journey into the darkness. Tyler?
Excellent. All right. We'll start off in-game, and then I'll have everybody kind of introduce themselves. All of you, through some way or another, know Edwin and Grace Wilcox. They're a middle-aged couple, probably in their late 40s, 50s, somewhere along there. They are very well known around Arkham. They are wealthy donors to Miskatonic University, and some of you know them through either that way or through maybe around town and so on. They're pretty wealthy family. It is 1923. We'll say that it is summer. The exact date doesn't matter. And you have all been invited to the Wilcox's recently built country mansion, which is just south of Arkham. They've said that they have an issue. They would like you to come and discuss it with them to potentially help them out. So you all make your way out on this lovely summer evening to the Wilcox's country mansion. It's nothing super big, but it's very comfortable. It's very nice. And you're all shown into a sitting room in the mansion, offered a drink. Yes, this is during Prohibition, but they still offer you a drink. And the butler excuses himself as he goes to fetch the couple. So you're all kind of sitting there. So why don't we use this opportunity to kind of introduce yourselves? Benjamin, let's start with you.
Well, I know who all of you are, but I don't know that you all know who I am. I'm Benjamin Armand. I am a private investigator, and quite frankly, I'm not exactly sure why they've invited me here. There must be something they need investigated. I've got a little place in Boston. My secretary is Marjorie Page. Miss Page, I call her. I investigate things. So show me some clues, I'll get to doing that. And you are Miss? Yeah.
It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. I'm Dr. Sybil Bentz. I'm a professor of Eastern European history at Miskatonic University with a specialization in the Central European countries, but especially Hungary. I know the Wilcoxes from many a fundraiser where we've chit-chatted over canapes and, well, shall we say, drinks for people to look the other way as to where it came from. When you all look at me, I'm probably pushing 6 feet, even without shoes, and somewhat gawky, but there's something about my very striking green eyes and kind of maternalish smile that sort of draws you to me anyway. As you can tell by my accent, I'm something of a transplant from Cincinnati, actually. And well, aside from younger Mr. Vandermolen, who I've had in a class or two, I'm not sure I've met any of the rest. So I believe you might be an attorney, sir.
Oh, yes. Yes, I'm Harvey Belvedere. I'm legal counsel and lawyer for, I represent several private investigators.
And we work together.
Yeah, where I'm here on behalf of Mr. Armin. It's a pleasure to meet you all.
Sorry I didn't introduce you earlier, Javi.
Oh,
But
it's all right. I like fading into the background.
I feel a little out of place in this place. I mean, it's my God, look at this.
Mr. Belvedere, I'm sure we've met on occasion, or possibly my lawyers have done business with you and we've met indirectly. But Garland, you haven't mentioned, I'm sorry, Dr. Bentz, was it?
Yes. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir.
Yes. I hope the Wilcoxes aren't in any trouble, and that's why they've assembled a slightly unusual group of people. Have you heard anything, Garland?
Well, nothing has come to me on the grapevine, but ever since leaving Miskatonic to go to law school at Harvard, I've been a little out of touch.
Yes, it's been several years since you graced my lecture halls.
And you don't come home as often as you'd like. You'd think you were ashamed of the old man.
Oh, come now, Father.
So your father and son. Okay, I get it.
Now, the Vanderwallens, how well would they know the Wilcoxes? Are they family friends?
If they're sufficiently socialite-like, then I might be the closest connection directly.
Okay. And Garland, how old are you?
24.
Okay, so you're just a little bit older, Dan. You know that the Wilcoxes, they have a son, Eugene. He's 23, so you probably would have gone to school with him. Dr. Bentz, you've actually had him in class a couple times, although you haven't quite seen him recently. But then again, you have kind of a specialized course, Eastern European history and all of that. So, you don't always see a lot of the same students over unless they're in that field, which he was not.
Right.
Armand and Belvedere, you will say that have at least some passing knowledge of the Wilcoxes, mostly through Edwin's business dealings. You know that he is very wealthy. He made all of his money in timber. And so even up in Boston, you've heard his name with some of the construction crews and companies up there.
Oh yeah, there was that insurance thing that we investigated for him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So after a couple minutes pass, the butler comes back in bringing a tray of sweets and breads and just kind of things to snack on. And shortly thereafter, both Edwin and Grace Wilcox enter the room. They're both around, in their mid 50s, both dressed very nice, appropriate for their status. He's wearing a suit and tie. She's wearing a very, very nice black evening dress. And they both come in and just kind of thank everyone for coming, especially on short notice. You only received their invitation a day or two ago.
Grace, you look magnificent. Edwin, I'll come anytime at all. Good to see you both.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. We would not have asked if we didn't feel that there was something going on. And with all of you, with your connection to the family and to the school, and they point at Dr. Bentz, we feel that you might be able to help us here. And Mr. Armand and Mr. Belvedere, you have come highly recommended from some of my husband's business partners. So again, we're hoping that you can assist us. And with that, Edwin is kind of agreeing along, and he says, everybody, please sit down and let us explain, why we've asked you here. He says, it has to do with our son, Eugene. And he kind of points to Garland and said, Eugene, he's a little bit younger than Garland here. We kind of feel that he might have lost his way. He's been going to some parties recently in Arkham on a weekly basis. These parties that are thrown by this Hungarian couple, not couple, and the Grace kind of touches his shoulder and corrects him. So no, they're not a couple. He's her uncle, and he kind of goes, "Oh, okay, yes." This this family of supposed displaced Hungarian nobles have been throwing these parties. Eugene has been going to them, and we're really worried that because these parties are so scandalous that something's going to happen. We feel that and you can kind of tell that he's trying to put this delicately. And at that point, Grace just says, no, what it is the niece. What is her name? Ariadne. She is just a gold digger. She is coming after my son to get at our money. And with that, Edwin kind of calms her down a little bit and says, yeah, honey, yes, that's kind of, what we're worried about here, when it comes down to, he's been going there a lot. We just don't trust these people. I mean, they very well may be European nobility. But some friends have told me that they're looking for financing to return to Hungary. And we're afraid that they're trying to get at our finances through our son, which what we're worried about is that they're going to do something to Eugene. They're going to blackmail him or convince him otherwise. And so we're hoping that all of you, with all of your connections, with all of your knowledge, might be able to help us and find out what's going on, because he's just not listening to us.
Well, Eugene has always been a passionate soul. I'm not surprised to hear that he's gotten himself caught up emotionally in such an affair.
It sounds to me like you also want to know, A, if they are aristocracy, and B, if they're actually financially well off, or if they've lost their entire fortune, which is certainly possible after the First World. I can't say the First World War. After the Great War.
And the treaty, don't forget that.
Yeah.
They lost a lot of land.
Also, Professor Bentz, I think you can back me up. Ariadne is by no means a Hungarian name, is it?
It is not. It's Greek.
It's Greek. And what was Ariadne in Greek myth? Spider lady?
She was, well,
No, that's
sort of.
Arachne.
She was,
Right.
no. She was the one who put the string in the
Minotaur's
labyrinth.
cave. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that Theseus could find and slay the Minotaur and could find his way back.
I've got a rather lovely ceramic with Ariadne on it somewhere in the archives. What's the last name of this couple?
Varga. It's Ariadne Varga, and her uncle is Zoltan.
Zoltan. And how old would you say?
Varga Ariadne and Varga Zoltan. All right, then. You may not realize this, but in Hungary, it is one of the only European countries to use Eastern name order.
Okay. I did not.
That was speaking in character.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what does that mean?
First.
You mean they put them in the wrong order?
If you can put it that way, yes. But when you introduce someone, you would introduce them as, if it were me, for instance, I would be Bentz Sybil.
Put the surname first because it's probably the more important thing. Yeah.
As much as I love a good classics and literature discussion, Edwin and Grace, where is your son now?
Grace speaks up. I don't know. We had a little bit of a falling out yesterday. I think he went to one of his friend's house. I found this, and with that, she pulls out this invitation. She says, "I found this in his." Room, and when I confronted him about this and said that I was not going to allow him to go to these parties anymore, and I was taking this invitation, he just laughed at me and said he's been there so often that they know him and they would let him in. And so she says, I don't know where he's gone. Again, he's probably at one of his friends. However, we know he'll be at this party tomorrow night.
Let's see, Arkham, but Bacchanal, come all to the Arga Estate, 863 Halsey Street on Friday evening at 8:00.
Well, Bacchanal, there's going to be drinking and carousing.
And again, Greek.
Greek word, yeah.
There's a
Huh?
This card it seems to have Greek pillars and grapes on it as a
Aren't the how connected are the Habsburgs with the Greek royalty? You know if they are? I thought they were like the English and the Germans and I just don't know my connectivity.
I'm curious, Keeper, when they say that there's a Varga estate at this part of Halsey Street, does that seem like the part of town that there would be an estate in?
Yes. Estate is probably a little bit too over descriptive for it. They're going to be larger houses. They're going to be mansions there, but like a sprawling estate, you're not going to find in that part of Arkham. But it is a nicer section of the town.
And despite being fairly well connected, I don't know this Varga family at all.
And actually, for those who live in Arkham, give me a no roll.
78 out of 85.
87 out of 80.
I got a 20 out of
75.
75, so I've got a hard.
So for those who made it, so for those who failed, you know that it's a nicer part of town. That's kind of what you know. For those who made it, you know that yes, it is in fact a nicer part of town, but it's also one of the older parts of town, and so the houses there, while they're still very nice, are not very new. They're maybe not, I don't want to say run down, but some of them are in a little bit need of work, and so the wealthy of Arkham don't necessarily live in that area.
Do we know roughly when the Vargas made it over to this country?
The Wilcoxes say no. We know that they've been throwing the parties for a number of weeks now. Maybe a little bit longer than that. I know that when they first started, or when Eugene first started to go there, that's when they started to get a little bit scandalous. That this Ariadne, and as she says that with this disdain in her voice, this Ariadne, I've heard there's drinking and there's jazz music and dancing. It's all very scandalous, and I know it's just going to come back on our son. In fact, and she kind of starts looking around the room, pulls out a newspaper, and she says, I believe there was an article on one of these parties in this week's newspaper.
A recent article from the Arkham Advertiser. The Gadabout, keeping up with Arkham's social scene. Not that the tea and biscuits at the Hall family estate were not delicious, but with the baptism complete, it was time for this reporter to take her leave and make a very special call. For some time, the Gadabout has been hearing tales of wild, loud Friday night parties taking place in one of the old mansions over in East Town, supposedly hosted by members of European nobility. I was anxious to learn more. Well, I finally managed to get my hands on an invitation, and away I went. I can't divulge the actual address, but from a number of automobiles parked up and down Halsey Street, it's not really hard to find. Although the mansion is a bit shabby, supposedly it's rented, light poured from all the windows, and the sound of laughter and spirited conversation could be heard all the way to the street. Somewhere, a piano played boogie-woogie music. What a mixed crowd it was. The Gadabout was certainly surprised. In attendance were a couple of well-known older gentlemen in the company of our host, an even tenured professor from the university, whose name you could not tear from me with wild dogs. I couldn't stay all evening, but I had the opportunity to meet the gracious host, a distinguished gentleman from Hungary named Zoltan Varga. Be assured, the Gadabout will be attending next week's gathering. Stay tuned for more. Madeline, Manchester.
Well, it doesn't exactly answer a question I was going to ask, but I was going to look into the fact to see whether they are owners or renters. This certainly sounds like they're just trying to get their hands on some money. Hopefully your son's not that stupid. Maybe we just
I
need to
hope
talk
so.
to him.
I hope so too, but he's young. Young men do silly things, and I'm just afraid he's being pulled into the drinking and whatever else goes on there. And with that, there's even more disdain in her voice.
Do I know any of Eugene's friends, people he normally associates with?
Yeah, you'd probably know a couple of them at least, or at least people who you think that he would you knew he associated with it at one point in time. If I remember correctly, you've kind of been away a little bit at law school, so you haven't been coming back and seeing him a lot. So it's been a couple of years since you've seen him. But yeah, you would at least know. You have some common acquaintances between the two of you.
Okay, so I have some people I might. I'm going to ask around, see if anybody else that Eugene pals around with have been going to these events.
Nothing else. I could at least lean on some people at work to see if any of them might be that tenured professor at the party. Heaven knows there's many of us that have rather interesting private lives.
Well, and you might need a little more than a pack of wild dogs, was it? Was that to get that name? So I don't know what you're keeping in the department offices these days, but.
True.
Edwin, Grace, you don't know how Eugene first met these Vargas?
No, I know that they are, kind of going around town, and who knows how he got this invitation in the first place. He does go out and, go to these parties. I suspect that he, met one of them, through that.
You haven't met either of them yourself.
No, absolutely not. We have not been to any of these parties at all. She said, come to think of it, it's very possible that he's been spending his time around one of his acquaintances, Gordon Checkley, and Garland. This name rings a bell. It's definitely somebody that you both would have known, but him as kind of one of these rich sons of a rich couple, a dilettante himself, who's really more interested in smoking and drinking and just living the high life as opposed to doing anything with his life. Whereas Eugene, at least at one point, had shown that he was going to college. He wanted to do something actually with his life.
So how is he actually doing in college?
Well, he and at this point, Edwin speaks up and says, "Well, he was doing well, and then about a year ago, he decided to take some time off. I think just being in school had burned him out, and so he needed that time off. And really, that's when all this started." Not necessarily not these parties, but that's when he started going out more and at all of that.
So, Javi, do you think we can take a look and see if we can find any dirt on this Zoltan and Ariadne Varga?
Oh, I'm all over that.
See if they've been trying to scam other people around the area.
Oh, yeah. I want to check out there, try to trace them back to their origin and see what type of history is following them. I hope you two have some form of protection or separation between your primary capital and your son. I mean, that's none of my business, but that would be the first step at protecting your assets.
No, Edwin says, I appreciate that. We have been working with our lawyers Eugene can't, and that's the thing, Eugene cannot get at the family funds. He's got his own trust fund. He has his own money to spend, which he gets, some each month. However, the full funds he'd only be able to access them in the event of our deaths. Our lawyers have seen to that. And even then, it's a limited access until he turns 30.
Well, if it's if that's the scam is more like marrying your son so that she has legal rights to some of his money.
Possibly. Keeper, when was the last time Eugene was in my class?
At least a year or two ago. You recognize the name, and there are pictures of him around the room. So you recognize him, but it's been a while. He was not a history major; he was a business major, and so was likely taking your course as an elective.
Okay.
And so the Vargas, enough the Vargas, the Wilcoxes, you continue your conversation for a little while, and at some point Edwin says, so I hate to impose on all of you for this, but would you be willing to go to this party tomorrow, and if nothing else, find out what's going on and make sure Edwin is okay? We are more than willing to provide monetary compensation for this. Obviously, any expenses you have, we will be more than happy to pay for.
I think Dr. Bentz, you're going to be invaluable because your Hungarian aristocracy pretty well. We need to trace and figure out how these people are really connected, and if they're charlatans.
It's certainly possible, from what I've heard so far, that they could very well be displaced aristocracy, but I would need to get a closer look at, ideally, their family line, but I have a feeling they would be very reticent with it.
Well, maybe there's some other Hungarians around that, aren't people rather proud of their family lines? Maybe they know something.
Yes. Of course, I would need to be very careful how I spoke, because, well, after the treaty and all of that, well, it's a little bit difficult to speak of.
Well, if they wanted a better treaty, then maybe they should have thought about fighting the war a little harder. Now, Father, do you think we could pay a visit to the Checkleys? Perhaps if you strike his father up in conversation, I can take Gordon aside and try to find out a little bit more about these events of theirs.
Yeah, if we think that Gordon was the introductory character, and Gordon is a bit of a a little loose, isn't he? So yes, we could stop by.
He's always one up for carousing. I'm sure it shouldn't be difficult to get him to talk. At least to me, anyway. I don't know about anybody else.
Avi, we'll go check the public records and see what we can find out about these people.
All records and start tracing this couple.
From the description in the Arkham Advertiser, just wonder, the only expense I can really imagine you'd need to put forward, Edwin and Grace, is maybe something for Detective Armand to wear that makes him look less like Flatfoot and more like a bohemian. A little paisley something, or some shoes that look less practical, just so he fits in. And I think I'll take
colorful, huh?
A little more colorful, a little less, of the people.
Oh, of course. Ed, we have a wonderful tailor in town. If you go and visit him, and Edwin gives you his card, just tell him that we sent you, and he'll be more than happy to get you whatever you need, and charge it back to us.
All right, I can always use a new suit.
Consider it a perk.
Well, we thank you all very much. I know this is a huge ask and a huge imposition, but and hopefully it leads to nothing. And if so, at this time next week, we'll all be laughing about this. But in the meantime, it would go a long way to ease us. And hopefully you can see why we can't just go do this. Where we're hoping that you can assist us in on this.
Indeed, I'd be
Of
afraid
course,
that
of
you'd
course.
chase Eugene into their arms. If that's what their plan is.
Well, if we can discredit them completely, I mean, if they're genuinely need to be discredited, then we can have them thrown in jail.
Pursue that.
I mean, I hope it doesn't come to that. I really do. I hope that they are genuine and there's nothing malicious or criminal going on in the background. But we're gonna feel better regardless.
Well, we'll be discreet. We don't
course.
want you dragged into the public forum.
We thank you all for that. And with that, the night kind of ends up with small talk, talking about business, various things like that, and then they thank you all again, and you all even go back to your respective houses, hotels, wherever you might be staying. Night passes without issue. Morning rolls around. So tell me what everybody's doing. Benjamin and Harvey, we'll start with you.
So I think that we need to check the public records on these people, see if there's any former, any background that this Zoltan Varga,
Marcus, see where they came from, see how far we can trace them back, at least in the United States, and see if there's any records.
Check, if they're renting, there's got to be some paperwork there. I'll go to the police station and I'll check, see if they have any record. Maybe you go by City Hall and see what you can find out.
Yeah, I'll do Hall of Records.
All right. Marjorie, you hold on the place, okay? Yeah. It's my secretary, Marjorie.
Okay. So why don't you both give me library use rolls.
All righty.
And we'll see what comes up from that.
37 is I've got 37. How about that?
Nice.
How often does that happen?
Wow.
And Harvey, how did you roll?
I did a 90, a typical kickoff roll for me.
It's City Hall in Arkham.
Get all the bad rolls out now.
Yeah.
Okay. So Harvey, you go down to City Hall. You don't find anything about the Vargas themselves, although you do go in and you start looking at the house itself. That is at 863 Halsey Street. You find that it's definitely an older house. It was probably built in the late 1700s. Nothing unusual for that part of town. It's kind of changed owners back and forth for the last, probably 50 or 60 years. Recently, it was bought by a professional landlord. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. But they rent houses essentially, and so from that you kind of infer that the Vargas did not buy the house, but they're probably renting it,
like from a realty trust company.
Exactly. Thank you. But that's really all that you can find. Benjamin, you go down to City Hall. Or not City Hall, to the police station, and you are looking to see if they know anything about the Vargas. Is that correct?
Right. I mean, everybody there knows me.
Okay. So you actually come across, when you get down there, you come across an old friend of yours, Detective Stuckey.
Stuckey.
Yeah. So, hey, Benjamin, what are you doing in Arkham? I thought you were up in Boston.
Yeah, I had to ended up back here. So, Stuckey, I got this situation. Some of the local big shots, their son's been involved in some sort of partying business over on Halsey Street.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have been called at all on the ruckus going on over there, but I need to find out if this Zoltan Varga or his daughter have any kind of prehistory as far as shady business, scamming people. I think they might be scamming these the rich folks.
Okay. Well, I'm I've kind of moved up in the department a little bit. I don't get to go out on those, calls anymore to things like that. Kind of working some of the bigger cases. But give me a second. Let me call down to a buddy of mine down at the front desk, and he's gonna know if there's anything going on. And so he kind of turns around, picks up the phone. You can hear him talking back and forth with somebody for about a minute or two, and he said, "Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thanks." So he puts down the phone. It's like, yeah, that house, we've been called out a couple times for kind of raucous parties going on. Nothing too bad. I mean, the typical that you'd find, rich people drinking, dancing, stuff like that. Mostly the neighbors just not liking the noise. I asked them about the Vargas. They said, they're the people living there. They seem like very nice people. I think it's an uncle and his niece or something from, I don't know, somewhere in Europe, Hungary. Yeah. So, other than that,
no previous records of these people.
No, I mean, it's the only time we've ever gone out is for those noise complaints. So, outside of that, there hasn't been much, that the front desk has said that they've had to do.
Let's see if I can get a photograph of them if I see them, but,
okay.
Because maybe they changed their name, maybe their aliases have changed.
Yeah, I mean, if you find anything, let me know. I can, always run it. Contact some people. I mean, you've got probably more contacts in Boston than I do, so you can always do that. But yeah, if you find anything, let me know. I'm always happy to look at it for you. I mean, I owe you the one for that one time and that one thing.
Oh yeah, well, we wouldn't want to forget that.
No, absolutely
that was
not.
A bit of a nightmare. All right. Well, if you hear anything about him, you know my number. Give me a call.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. So just so I know, Armand and Belvedere, are you guys, are you from Boston and just kind of staying in a hotel in Arkham, or are you actually living in Arkham?
Well, actually, I kind of made a mistake when I introduced my character because I see here I live in Arkham. So
yeah, I'm in Arkham.
Boston's about 2 hours.
Then ignore anything that I said about Boston.
So all the Boston stuff, yeah, it's
okay. No worries. All right, Dr. Bentz. So you said you were going to see if you can kind of dig up who that professor is.
Well, I was interested in that, but I'm also wanting to trace back the actual Hungarian nobility to see if Varga, like what type of noble family they even are.
Okay. Then let me see here. So that's going to be a library use role, but how are you going to go about trying to figure out about the professor?
Well, my first thought would be basically, there is the university grapevine. People talk. So there's probably people who have had whispers about them attending some of these types of things.
Okay.
Like if someone happens to be a bit of a booze hound or a party animal, that sort of thing. It's might not be like well known among a lot of the faculty, but if there's always that one person, everyone's like, if you want to have a good time, talk to this one.
Okay. So let's say this. Give me a combined library use and it kind of feels like a charm roll where you're trying to get information out of people. So just roll it once, roll the dice once. And if you pass both, then you pass both. If you only pass one, then you pass one. Just kind of use that one roll for both of those rolls.
26. So that is a hard pass for library use and a fail for charm.
Okay. So with the library use, you're kind of digging into the Varga name. You can't find any that like direct Hungarian nobility that are named Varga. However, you can find some mentions in the genealogy and things like that. with that lead you to names that are Varga. It's not a very common name, and if they are nobility, it's like they're the cousin of the cousin, twice removed of some Hungarian noble who's something like that. So they're probably, from what you can tell, if it is them, they are probably wealthy. They probably had some like land noble title, but not like a royalty title.
Okay.
With trying to kind of go down the grapevine, you start asking around, and you know who to ask. You know who the people who would likely get this information are. You know who like the secretaries are, but you're just not. Nobody seems to know. If somebody's going to these parties, they're kind of keeping it tight-lipped, for whatever reason.
Okay.
And then the Vandermollens. You said you were going to go to the Checkleys, correct?
Yes. I'll call over there and speak to the secretary or whoever maintains the social things for the house, the wife or the secretary.
It would probably be. They're not super rich. They're definitely not as rich as you are or the Wilcoxes. But they're wealthy. So it'd probably be the wife who is doing it. Her name's Sybil. And when you call over, she answers the phone. And oh, Thaddeus, it's been forever since we've talked. How are you?
Oh, it's another beautiful summer in Arkham. I'm very well. I hope the family is happy and comfortable.
Oh, yes. We're doing very well, thank you. For what do I owe the pleasure of you calling?
Well, I'll tell you. There's a potential little bit of gossip that I have to share, and maybe something I can pick up from you. And Garland's in town over the summer.
Lovely.
Is Gordon in as well?
No, he actually moved into his own apartment a couple weeks ago.
In town?
Yes. Although he, is kind of living the bachelor life right now. So, he's in and out. I can give you his address if you wanted to look him up, but it's Friday, so I know he's going to be out and about all day, and then he goes out, and you know how kids are. They have all these parties and the socialization and all of that.
Well, I might as well give me the address now so I can give it to Garland. He'll want to drop by and clink cider cups with him.
Yes, absolutely.
Congratulations.
And she gives you the address. It's in a kind of a nicer area of town, but it's kind of known for having basically apartments, things like that.
Right, and not anywhere near Halsey Street.
No, it's probably a couple miles away.
Well, Sybil, I'm looking forward to talking to you. What do you say I drop by after lunch, maybe 2?
That sounds great. Please do. We'll have it ready, and we'll catch up.
I'll just be a minute, but it'd be lovely to see you. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So she kind of hangs up.
So, Garland, it seems like it'll be grown-ups only. Do you want to buzz by Gordon's place and see whether he just sleeps until 3 and they think he's running errands, or?
Yeah, we'll see what the bird has done since they tried the test to see if he could fly or not.
Before I go over there, I'd like to call a few, comfortable families, maybe with European ties, and see if anybody has heard anything, and if anybody invited these Vargas to town.
Sure, I won't even make you roll. You kind of call around town to some of the families Nobody has heard. Some of them have actually heard of them. You kind of get the impression that they've invited a number of people to these parties. In fact, give me a luck roll.
Sure. That is a very good success, a 16.
Awesome. So one as you're talking to one of your friends who is from Europe, they don't know the Vargas themselves, but they have been invited to parties, and they know that they haven't gone, and they know of people who have, and they kind of relate to you that these parties started about 2 months ago. The Vargas, kind of showed up, maybe a couple of weeks prior, started making the rounds at the right restaurants, the right places, meeting people. And at first the parties were very kind of tame, is basically, Zoltan, the uncle, inviting people over to get to know them. What they relate to you is that, he was really trying to, just kind of settle into this new area and meet the people there. And the parties weren't, anything, raucous or anything like that until about a month ago or so, when Ariadne started to kind of take over the parties. And that's when they started to get the reputation that they have for being, having the drinking and the jazz and being called the Bacchanal and so on.
Very interesting. I'm going to have to check in with Grace and Edwin about just how much money the lad Eugene has to throw if he's actually funding these things, and they don't know. But we'll see tonight, at any rate, what the scale of things is. So we'll thank them, and I assume that a visit to the Checkleys doesn't provide a lot more.
Yeah, your lunch to the Checkleys doesn't really provide more information. The impression that you get is that they're either delusional or just kind of ignoring the obvious that their son is just kind of a partier, and they're just kind of under the impression that he's either like sowing his wild oats before he settles down, or just he's really that's what they feel he is. He's just going through a phase, and that he'll get out. And
I'm happy to humor them.
Exactly.
And all right, thank you. Very good.
All right.
Question, Keeper.
Yes.
I'm into my research. That's part of what I do for my career, and I would like to pour in a little deeper there. If I spend a little more time, could I push my roll?
Sure.
On? Okay, here we go. I am pushing this. Virtue of dump time. 09.
Nice.
That's an extreme.
So remind me again what you were looking for.
I was looking through the Hall of Records, trying to trace back the Vargas.
Yes. So you start digging a little bit more, and the more you dig, the more you find that, and granted, you're in Arkham City record, so it's not like you're dealing with immigration records or something like that. However, you start being a little bit more creative. If somebody's renting a house, then somebody has to file paperwork on it, and they probably lived somewhere else before that. You really start to get the impression that they just kind of appeared here a couple months ago, about 2.5 months prior to this. And there's no record prior to that.
Interesting. All right. Thank you. Interesting.
And Garland, were you going to go over to...
I was going to go pay a visit to Gordon, see if he's there.
So you go over to you go over to Gordon's house, his apartment. It's a decent apartment. It is in an apartment building. It's nothing too extravagant, but still kind of upper class, a little bit mid to upper class. You go to his door and knock on the door, and there's no answer. Go ahead, though, and give me a... Give me a no roll.
99. I know.
So yeah, you're just kind of distracted. You're there. You can kind of smell something. This weird acrid odor coming from his apartment. Not that something like is actively coming out. You just have this like lingering smell that you can definitely tell is coming from his apartment, but you don't know what it is.
Is his door locked?
Yeah, it's locked. There is a window there. The shades are pulled.
Okay, and that's all locked up. I'll go down the hall next door and knock. After you hear somebody moving around, and after about 30 seconds or so, you hear a voice on the other side. It's a man's voice. It says, "Yes, can I help you?" Sorry, I am trying to check in on Gordon Chexley, your next door, the next apartment over. Haven't seen him in a bit. Just wondering if anybody in the apartment building has seen him in the last little while.
And so the door kind of opens up, and this fairly large man. It looks like he might be like some type of blue collar worker or something. Pretty muscle built, wearing a t-shirt and a pair of slacks. Opens the door and kind of eyes you up and down and says, "Why are you looking for Gordon?"
Old friend of his in town for the summer. Just wanted to check up on him.
Well, I don't think he's home.
Oh.
Go ahead and give me a persuade roll.
Persuade 07. That is a hard success.
He kind of looks you up and down a little bit more. And so how is Garland dressed? How would he be dressed?
Very casually.
Okay.
I'm not in a 3-piece suit or anything. I do have a bit of a preppy look to me. Like I do look like an upscale rich college kid, but I'm not like dressed to the nines.
Okay. So he kind of looks you up and down, and he just kind of sighs, and he's like, "Look, man, I don't know where Garland is." Or Garland, I keep saying Gordon is. He comes and goes. He's kind of a partier, man. So he's bringing girls home all times of day and night. Look, I got to get up early in the morning, and he keeps me up at night. The smell that comes out of there, it's just he's just a partier. He's probably out, and he kind of there's like a side window near there, and he kind of glances out. He's like, his car's not even here, so I don't know where he is. Sorry.
Oh, well, that's no worries. Thank you so much for at least talking to me. I mean, ever since I left town, I fear that some of my associates have gone a little wayward.
He's like, yeah, and he kind of looks around to make sure nobody's in the hall, and he's like, "Look, man, I don't know how well you know him, but I'm sure you can smell that. I mean, do you know what that is?"
I'm not familiar.
He's like, "Man, that's marijuana." He's gotten really into drinking and drugs, and I mean, he seems like a nice kid. Don't get me wrong, and the guy's probably in his 40s. And he says, look, he seems like a nice kid, but he's definitely into that partying and drugs. Who knows how much longer he's going to be around here, if he gets my drift.
Well, I suppose you don't know any of his usual haunts.
No, man, no. He's I know, like, every Friday night he goes to this, like, some big to-do party by some rich people. I don't know. He kind of steps back and look at me. I'm not going to these parties, obviously. So I just kind of have to deal with it in the mornings. When he comes home, things like that.
All right. Well, appreciate so much you taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah, no problem. And with that, he kind of steps and closes the door. So with that kind of takes most of the day. So by around 6 o'clock or so is when you all kind of finish up doing whatever. What are your plans? I'll even let you say that you all kind of exchange information. So if you want to meet up somewhere, you can. If you wanted to just meet at the party, let me know how you want to do this.
Hey, Harvey, what do you think? They fixed me up pretty well, huh?
Oh, you look great, Ben.
Is my disguise going to fool them? You think they'll know I'm not some fancy schmancy rich person?
Well, maybe as long as you don't say anything, you'll pass off just great.
All right. Well, let's get our stuff together and go.
All right.
May I suggest that we all meet at my place and travel there in at least 2 vehicles, so we can
That would be easier.
have a little organization, and then know that if one vehicle is compromised in any way, we have another way out.
Yeah.
Should we go in all obviously knowing one another, or should we sort of...
My thought is that, Eugene made it clear that he didn't need his invitation, but other people might. So if we present an invitation as a group, then we should not be worried about admittance.
Right.
Yeah.
While we're here, Father, do you have any Greek texts that could enlighten us as to her choice of name, if it is in fact?
Well, it's not a
Some
Greek
kind
name. Sure. Let's see. The myths in the library are by the bust of Hephaestus. There should be Hesiod there, and I only read about 1/10 of the books that I buy. So
You're maybe being a little too generous with that number. Let's see. Here, Ariadne. All right. Is this what you're talking about? These
yeah, that looks promising.
Greek mythology.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, what you find in there is basically what you'd expect to find, of what you've already said about the Greek myth. Nothing extraordinary out of that, or it was brought up by Dr. Bentz earlier. It seems a little bit odd that she would have a Greek name and be Hungarian, but
Although I know people who name their children Thor and things in New England. Some people just fetishize other cultures. Mr. Armand, I think you were treated very admirably. Do you feel comfortable?
Oh yeah, it's a very nice suit,
Yeah,
or
a
if you
fine
call it a
does.
suit. I don't exactly know what this thing is, but
Now, don't fuss with it too much. They can be, if they will adjust once you loosen them. Are you going to be, what do they say, Garland? Packing heat?
oh well, yeah. I usually have that. I usually have a gun. I've got a gun, but I keep it in my holster here.
And
You want to see it?
Oh no, I'm just curious.
No, I believe we're fine knowing you have it at least.
Do I need some fancy schmancy thing for my cigarette?
Given what Garland told me about what Gordon's been up to, probably you could be rolling your own out of swamp grass and it would fit right in.
Yeah, if Gordon's habits are anything to go by. The most important thing, I believe the invitation says, come one, come all. So I don't believe they're going to be too picky. I would advise you, however, rich folk tend to be a little skittish when investigative types come.
Well, hopefully
around.
I'm disguised now.
Hopefully.
I'll just
I
act
do want
eccentric.
to. Of course. I do want to fill you all in on what I discovered when I did some digging into the Varga family, at least. As it happens, if these Vargas are in fact nobility, it is quite distant, and it is through land, not like royal blood or noble blood or anything like that. It's the easiest way I can explain it is cousin of a cousin twice removed,
Sure.
etc.
Sure. And from what Harvey said, they seem to have just appeared out of nowhere, My guess is they might not even be Vargas. That might be.
It's possible, but I may not. I wouldn't ask that at the party, because if in fact we are wrong and they are in fact nobility, offending our host would be a very bad idea.
Well, yeah. I mean, we don't want to give ourselves away either.
And Professor Bentz, you'd be able to just by hearing their accent, you could probably identify where they're from, roughly.
Roughly, I do speak Hungarian.
Yeah,
I'm wondering, as I said before, aren't most families rather proud of their background? Hopefully, he'll just start spilling the beans and say, "Oh yes, my mother was this and my father was this." Then you'll have more stuff to go on to check.
If we're going to be maybe a little frank, this Ariadna has an interest in richer young men. So if we're going to split up responsibilities for investigation, I'm sure it wouldn't be any trouble for me to slip into a conversation, into a circle with good old Eugene and his lady.
Certainly.
Be careful. There's probably going to be all kinds of drugs going on here.
That marijuana.
Probably a lot stronger than marijuana.
Yes, from what I've heard.
Well, Thaddeus didn't raise a fool.
Well, at least not more than one. Right. Yeah. So we all agree. I think Detective and Harvey, the fact that they've only been throwing these soirees for a couple of months and they're being louder all the time suggests that they came in with some capital and they're trying to throw it around to get the right introductions and then get out of Dodge. So we're all pretty much on guard. But I'm personally going to try to have a good time as well.
It's a pretty old estate from the early 1700s. Lots of owners until the recent Realty Trust Company came to own it, but it looks like they're renting it out to the Vargas.
So we'll take
get over there.
I've got a larger car and you a smaller one, Detective, and that way maybe we should park one of them around the corner in case there's any kind of interference with vehicles.
Yes.
I'm sorry to embarrass you by playing up the espionage angle, but I don't get out that much these days.
Just bear in mind, this isn't really an entertainment. We don't know that there's something really dangerous going on here. If they're criminals, they might be.
It's my understanding that con men in general aren't terribly violent. They're mostly reliant on the trusting nature or the innocence of youth.
Well, let's just hope that we don't have the one con man that's dangerous.
Well, that's why I'm glad you're packing heat.
So with that, you all kind of pile into your respective cars and head over to Halsey Street. Once you get on Halsey Street, it's pretty obvious where the party is. The street is filled with parked cars. So your plan to kind of park around the corner, you had to do that anyways. There seems to be, a lot of people. And as you kind of get out of your cars and walk towards the mansion, it's very easy to spot because it is brightly lit. You can hear, even from, a distance, you can see it, you can hear the music, you can hear people talking. And so this definitely seems like the right place. I'm going to assume everybody's just kind of walking up together unless somebody says otherwise. Sorry, go on. Okay. So as you start walking up towards the house, and it's a two-story mansion. It's fairly, it looks, in fairly good shape. It looks like a very, very nice house. It's definitely what one would consider a mansion. As you start walking towards the front door from the street, you can see that the front door is open, and standing in the front door is what looks like to be a maid, although she is a very, an older woman, probably in her 60s. graying hair, a little bit bigger woman, and she's just kind of standing and blocking the door. And in front of her on the front porch is another woman, probably in her 50s. She's not dressed up. She's dressed more of what you would consider like a middle class person to be wearing: a hat, a nice coat, a skirt. But the woman is standing there, and as you get closer, she's almost yelling at the maid who's blocking the door, and the woman is saying, "Do you know who you're talking to?" And she just kind of stops, and the maid just kind of looks at her, and she doesn't say anything. You can kind of hear her let off this grunt, and so the woman responds, "Well, so be it. We'll see how you people like next week's column." And she turns around, and as she turns around, she just starts to walk off the porch and try to basically just push through you to get back to the sidewalk.
Hold on, folks. Mrs. Manchester, is it?
The woman stops and kind of looks at you and is a little bit surprised, and she goes, "Maybe. Who are you?"
Just some first-time party guests. Could we step away from the house a little bit? I don't want... What's the name of that woman, that Gorgon who keeps the door?
Oh, her. I think her name's Frida or something like that.
Are they cross with you about last week's column?
Oh, probably. I mean, who knows? I was able to get in last week. Why they're not letting me in this week, I don't know. I lost my invitation, so maybe that's the reason. And you can tell that she's like very hot under the collar about this. She's kind of spouting off a little bit. Not really making too much sense, but mostly because she's just really, really mad that she can't get in. She keeps talking about saying about how they're going to regret not letting me in this week because I'm just because of the column, and they're just not going to like what I say.
Well, that might be for the best. We don't know exactly what sort of people these are anyway. But I'll tell you what, we're going to go in as a group, if there's no objection, in a moment. Do you know where there's an upstairs bathroom? I'll just slip the invite out under the lawn, and you can carry it in after us if it's worth your trouble. Unless you'd rather just write an angry column, which I understand.
Oh, well, I mean, that's, I'm sorry, your name?
Mr. Thad Vandermolen.
Oh, Mr. Vandermolen. I appreciate that. I really do. But, if I ran into that woman again, I'm sure she would, throw me out. So, well, I appreciate the gesture. I'll tell you what. And she kind of roots around in her pocket and she hands you a business card. And the business card actually does not say Madeline Manchester. It says Callie Smith, reporter, Arkham advertiser. She says, look, if you find out anything interesting or you see anything interesting tonight, please give me a call. I would love to kind of spill the beans on this party and, make them look bad.
My pleasure, Miss Smith. The woman who threw you out, was that Ariadne?
No, Ariadne. No, she's much younger. This woman is their maid. I don't even know if she speaks English. And so she kind of, and with that, she kind of thanks you again and then turns off and starts walking down.
Be in touch.
The maid at this point is still kind of standing at the door, just kind of staring at you all.
Mr. Vandermolen, you need to be careful. Talking to members of the press, we want to keep this on the down low. You gave me a name. She's going to use it in the paper.
Well, I mean, frankly, and Mr. Belvedere, you'll back me up, I don't think she'd be very well advised to bring a Vanderbilt into this on the basis of having been given a name by a stranger in the dark. Let's shuffle around a little bit so that we're not associated with that woman. I tried to pull her off the porch before that conversation, but I don't want.
Yeah, and you would have. I'll say that you weren't necessarily hidden from view, but it wasn't like you were talking to her about this on the porch.
Very good.
And having her on side could be useful if we have to cover our tracks a bit.
Keeper, the chatted name was directly to me. I chatted you something.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
All right,
Yeah, the name was Callie, Callie.
Short for Calliope, I believe.
And so
Another
with that,
freak.
the maid is just kind of staring at you. You can see behind her the foyer into the mansion. There's a gentleman kind of standing off, kind of leaning against. You see this staircase in the middle of the room behind her. There's a gentleman just kind of leaning back. It looks like he's in his 30s. He looks very amused, kind of watching this whole ordeal take place.
Well, Garland, friends, this must be the place. Apparently, they do have standards throwing out certain types. Good evening.
Yeah, they don't want the press here.
This is the Bacchanal, I believe. We've got this ticket.
And the maid just kind of reaches out, looks at it, kind of gives you this like squinty-eyed look. You can tell that she's seems to be a little bit upset about what happened, a little bit mad. She kind of looks at it again, and then finally steps aside and waves you inside.
Good evening to you. Thank you very much.
As we walk by, I decide to test something and say, thank you to her in Hungarian.
She just gives you a blank look and does not respond.
Okay.
As you walk into the foyer, it's basically a spacious entry hall. It has a very nice flagstone floor that's well scrubbed. It's very clean, but you can just by looking at it, just kind of staring around the room, you can tell that the flagstones have cracked in a couple places. Right directly in front of you is a grand staircase that leads up to the second floor, and it's lighted by a very large electric chandelier that's hung from above. It looks very extravagant. It looks very elegant. Everybody give me spot hidden rolls, though.
Regular success.
Avi, don't forget the cat.
Regular success.
66 is a failure.
So for those of you who make it,
Extreme.
well, actually, for those of you who fail, you're kind of taken aback by this room, and really just everything. There are rooms to your right and to your left. To the right is you can kind of see through the open doors. It looks like there's a sitting room, and there's a lot of music coming out of there. It sounds like somebody's playing a piano in there. You can see some people kind of sitting around. To your left, that room is much more sedate. It looks like it might be some type of sitting room or parlor or something like that. You can see some people kind of in there. Those who made your spot hidden roll, as you're looking around the room, you can see that everything looks very, very nice, but you can kind of see like on the staircase how somebody did basically like a slapdash white paint job to cover over some peeling paint. They didn't properly remove the paint. They just kind of painted over it. The red carpeted runner that's going up the stairs, it looks very nice if you were just kind of glancing at it. But when you look at it a little bit closer, you can see that it's kind of worn. It's not brand new. It's not something that you would expect somebody with a lot of money to have. With that, the gentleman who was standing kind of leaning against the staircase moves forward. He's got this huge smile on his face. He's holding a drink, a martini, kind of comes over and he's laughing as the maid just kind of turns around and kind of walks behind the stairs. It looks like there's like a doorway behind the stairs, probably to some rooms behind it. He kind of laughs and introduces himself, says, well, Alfred Bates, welcome to the party. Apologize for the help there. It's hard to find good help these days. And he's chuckling this whole time.
Mr. Bates, are you a member of a friend of the family?
Friend of the Vargas, yes. I met Ariadne and Zoltan a couple weeks ago. They invited me to their parties. It's been a raucous, great time. So I've kept coming. I mean, why not? Right?
Free food, free dancing, free whatever.
Absolutely. And with that, he kind of holds up his drink and smiles and takes another drink.
How old is this Bates fellow?
You estimate, 30s.
So he's too old for me to call him Master Bates. That's a pity. I will ask him where the nearest drinks tray is.
So you'll want to go, and he kind of leans his hand to the right where this music is coming from. He says, all the drinks are in there. Although you'll probably find some in the dining room or the parlor as well. Feel free to help yourself. Ariadne and Zoltan are very, very good with sharing their wealth and sharing their good fortune.
Can't wait to meet them. Nice to meet you, Mr. Bates.
Yes, nice to meet you too.
One question, sir. How
Yes.
close did you say you were with the family again?
Oh, I've met them through some social gatherings, and they invited me. I wouldn't say that I'm very close.
All right, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And with that, he kind of looks over into the room where to your right, as you're coming in the door, where the piano's playing, and he sees, it almost looks like he sees somebody in there, and he goes, "Oh, well, if you'll excuse me, I must go mingle now." And with that, he kind of turns and walks into that room.
So I've got kind of a weird technical question. I got an extreme on my spot hidden.
Okay.
So, and I'm a detective, so I'm looking around. I'm wondering how they're paying for all this, and I'm making certain assumptions. I'm assuming that if they're renting the place, this isn't necessarily their stuff that's in the house. Do I see any evidence of things being moved or maybe sold off, and like dimples in the carpet where there should be something?
Gotcha. You don't see anything like that, and so you're still in the foyer. You can kind of see into the two rooms to the side. You can see paintings on the wall, on some of the walls. You can see some furniture. When you kind of compare the paintings, and they're very nice paintings, they look very new, and not necessarily new, but kind of high end. It's not like hotel art here.
Sure,
we're talking like something that came from an art gallery somewhere. The furniture itself looks very nice. When you contrast that to what you're seeing with on like the staircase with the carpet being worn out and just the crappy paint job, it seems very out of place. So because you got an extreme success, I will say that, in your mind, you kind of feel like, maybe they're renting this furniture or maybe somebody gave it to them to borrow or something like that.
Okay.
But for my looking around with a decent, I didn't get an extreme, but a hard, I'd be looking more so like at the people. Do they seem like they're more intoxicated, or does it look like there might be a bunch of people that are sort of in drugged stupors by any chance?
No, you don't see anything like that. I mean, definitely everybody has a drink in their hands, just by glancing around. Everybody, you definitely see some tipsy people, maybe some people, you can tell from the distance that are a little bit more than tipsy. Nothing that you would consider drugs. In fact, I would say that at least some of you know what marijuana smells like. You're not smelling anything like that. In fact, it actually smells quite pleasant. There are flowers in vases and things like that.
Well, I am going to detach from all the older people I've just arrived with, and I'm going to head upstairs.
Okay. So you're going to start walking upstairs. What is everybody else doing?
I'm heading towards the music room. Yeah.
I'm definitely heading toward the drinks. Because I feel like that's probably the best place to find one or both of the Vargas.
Okay.
And anyone who's coming with me, I kind of lean into with sort of murmur, I don't that the maid didn't understand me when we came in. I don't think she's Hungarian.
We got that impression. Yeah.
Okay. So other than Garland, is everybody going to the room to the right, room number 3 on your map, where the music's coming from?
Yeah.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll shadow Benjamin.
Okay.
That seems to be where the party's at. Yeah.
So Garland, what we'll do you first. You start to walk up the stairs, and you get about half, maybe like 3/4 of the way up the stairs. And as you get up there, you can see that it's basically like the upstairs goes into a hallway that stretches across the length of the house. You can see at least 3 different doors that are closed. But as you get about 2/3 of the way up, you hear a voice behind you saying, excuse me, sir, I'm sorry, but the party is down here. And as you kind of turn around, you can see another maid, or at least somebody dressed up as like a servant, serving drinks. She's holding a holding a something to carry drinks, and she's just kind of looking up at you and says, "Sir, I'm sorry, the party is down here."
Oh, my most sincere apologies.
Oh, no worries. Can I get you anything?
Oh, just what do you have on your tray there?
Oh, she says, we have champagne and wine, and in the room, and she kind of points to the room on the right. There's liquor in there that you can pour yourself a drink. We'll be bringing food out soon.
Oh well, thank you so much. I'll take a flute from her. And
okay,
I guess
okay,
head in that direction. If I don't hear if nobody's talking in that other room that they said was like a part, like when we first walked in,
right,
there was the left,
right.
But most
I mean, you can see some people in there. They're definitely in there talking. You see at least 2 couples kind of sitting around a table, drinks in hand, talking. From your vantage point, you can kind of see some guy kind of brooding in the corner, almost holding a drink with, it looks like he has bourbon or something like that, whiskey. But it's definitely much more calm than the other room.
All right. Well, if I don't spot anybody I immediately recognize,
yeah, you don't see anybody that you would recognize.
Then I'll wander in after the older folks into the piano room.
All right. So the 4 of you, as Garland was doing this, you wandered into the room on the right, which is really a sitting room. You look around the room, and the biggest thing that you can see, or the most obvious thing, is in the corner is a gentleman playing the piano. He's playing it very, very loudly, but everybody who's there seems to be enjoying it. He's going through, right now he's playing a number of kind of well-known kind of pop songs, essentially. He's not playing anything like anything classical or anything like that. It's all a very fast tune, fast speed. Exactly. Also around the room, you see on the other side of the room, you see a table set up with a large amount of liquor. There is more than a dozen bottles of scotch, Canadian whiskey, gin, anything that you think that you would like. There's no bartender. There's no bartender. Everybody, there's glasses right next to it, so everybody is kind of serving themselves. Additionally, there is a couple gentlemen sitting on a couch right next to the liquor. Even just by looking at them, you can tell that they are inebriated. They're pretty drunk. Of the gentlemen that came into the room, of the three, Benjamin, Harvey, and Thaddeus, who has the highest appearance?
45.
65.
50.
All right. So as you walk in, as the four of you walk in, Thaddeus, you see all of this, but then you also see this very attractive woman, blonde in her 30s, kind of come up to you almost immediately. She kind of spies you and immediately starts walking up to you and says, "Oh, hello. I don't recall seeing you at these parties before. Are you new to here?"
This is my first bacchanal on Halsey Street.
Really? Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Glenda, a friend of Ariadne. Please let me introduce you around. Let me take you around. And with that, she kind of slips her arm into yours, kind of pulling you, close.
You're too kind, Glenda. Are you an Archimist yourself? You don't sound Hungarian.
No. I actually, she kind of chuckles a little bit and says it a little bit low. I actually worked at Gleason's department store. Ariadne has come in multiple times to purchase things and invited me, and I just love it. I've been coming here for weeks and weeks. But please, let me show you around. She kind of pulls you tight even more. How about we go get you a drink?
A delightful idea. What are you having, dear?
Whatever you're having. And with that, she kind of starts pulling you over to the whole table of liquor.
Yes, I think for the keeper's purposes, not for Glenda's, I think I'll be able to tell whether the booze is real or not most effectively by choosing one of the gins.
Okay.
Seeing whether the label is new, whether it tastes anything like that gin should, etc.
It absolutely does. It is absolutely real. Everything that you would expect to find for it to be, a real high quality liquor, it is.
So they're spending a fortune on these soirees, is what I'm understanding. I'm also going to pour Glenda a generous dollop.
Okay. And she happily takes it, and she starts to drink it and coughs a little bit. You can kind of tell that she probably is not a heavy drinker, but she's trying to keep up appearances.
We're all learning new tricks, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely. And she kind of giggles. With that, what's everybody else doing at this point in time? Garland, you have walked into the room as well.
While they're doing that, I'm gonna sidle up and make myself a gin and tonic, and then sort of cast my eyes around the room to see who probably looks like the host in here. Are they here at all?
Looking around the room, you don't see anybody who looks like a host. Although, give me a spot hidden for Dr. Bentz only.
62 out of 65. Made it.
Nice. So looking into the room we'll say to your north, not the room you came from, but the other room next to this. It looks like it's a library, and you can see a couple, about 5 or 6 men in there, in about 2 or 3 groups talking. One of the men you recognize. It is Professor Francis Morgan. You know that he is one of the more tenured professors of the archaeology department at Miskatonic University.
Found you.
In addition to that, as you're kind of looking around, you do see some people kind of walking around serving drinks. You do recognize some of them as students from the university. It looks like maybe the Vargas have hired them to act as the waiters and waitresses for the night.
Interesting.
Benjamin and Harvey, what are you two doing?
Well, I'm heading over by the piano.
Okay.
And I'm looking for some young woman who's I could eavesdrop to find out if she's Ariadne.
Looking around, you don't see anybody who you would consider that. The only woman in this room is Glenda, and the library, the next room over, you don't see any women in there other than a waitress or two that walks in every once in a while. You can see from that room, from the library, it looks like it opens up into a conservatory. Kind of like a big glass conservatory on the outside of the house. However, you can't tell who's in there. There's not a lot of lighting out there. It's nighttime, so it's kind of hard to see from the room you're in.
Was I close enough to Thaddeus when he was talking to Glenda to overhear their conversation?
Yeah, the music's pretty loud, but you were all together when she came up, and she was not being shy at all.
All right.
In fact, as you glance over, she is just, her arm is with Thaddeus. She's, striking up a conversation, trying to be charming.
I'm going to randomly choose a number of people, possibly the ones that seem a bit inebriated.
Mm-hmm.
And the information I'm going to try to get out of them. Well, have you been to a lot of these parties? What do you do for a living?
So you walk over there. So as you're walking over there, let me just ask Harvey and Garland, what are you two doing in the room?
I was going to head to the drinks, find an empty glass. And as long as no one's sort of like staring at me, there's I'm guessing, a pitcher of water there for mixing.
Yeah,
I'm going to pour like a half glass of water, put a couple ice cubes in it, and just sort of walk from there into the library and start eavesdropping into any of the conversations there while fake perusing the books.
Gotcha. Okay. And Garland?
I am looking for Eugene or Gordon, basically somebody that I know. If I don't see anybody in this room, I'll go to the next. And if I don't see anybody in the library, I'll go outside.
Gotcha. So in this
champagne in hand, but I'm not drinking.
Okay. So Garland, with you, you don't see anybody in this room you recognize. You definitely don't see Eugene. You don't see Gordon. And so you kind of head over into the library. Harvey, you kind of head that way too a little bit before Garland. We'll kind of get back to you here in a second. Benjamin, you walk over to the two gentlemen who are kind of just sitting down next to the liquor, the table of liquor. And Thaddeus, you're close enough, even though Glenda is kind of talking off your ear, you can kind of see this too. And so you could probably hear this, and Dr. Bentz too, you could probably hear this as well, even though, again, the piano's pretty loud. The pianist is going at a pretty good pace. So Benjamin, you walk over, and the two gentlemen, kind of look up at you and smile. One who looks to be a little bit older, maybe in his 40s, he's wearing a very nice suit. He does not appear to be, too inebriated, although you can kind of tell he is. The other gentleman, who's maybe late 30s, still kind of wearing a nice suit, look dressed up. He is definitely 3 sheets to the wind. He's not, spilling things all over him, although he's kind of got that, relaxed pose. He's got a drink in his hand, slowly brings it up to his mouth, things like that. As you come over, they kind of smile at you and say, well, welcome to the party.
Oh, thank you for, it's quite a party, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Is this your first time here?
It actually is. Yeah. How many times have you been to this party?
Oh, and the older gentleman is the one who's talking to you. He says, yeah, this is probably, I think, my second or third one. The name's Portman, Stuart Portman. And he reaches out and shakes your hand. Yes. And here, my friend here is Apley, Bartholomew Apley. He's been here more than I, and he kind of, nudges him a little bit and laughs. Yeah, I think he just comes here for the alcohol, for the liquor.
So what do you guys do for a living?
Oh, well, you get right to the point, don't you, Mr.
Armand?
Oh, Armand. Okay. I'm the older gentleman again is speaking. He says, I come from a wealthy family, so I'm pretty self-supported. Although I'm a collector of various fine items, art, books, music, things like that. And the other gentleman kind of laughs and smiles and says that he's his name again is Bartholomew Apley. He basically describes how he owns like an importing business within Arkham.
Well, so how long have you known Zoltan and Ariadne?
Only a couple weeks. I met, again, this is Stuart talking, the older gentleman. I met Zoltan through a gentleman's club in Arkham and City, where he was invited by another member, and he ended up inviting me. He's got a very interesting story. You haven't met him yet.
We haven't seen him. Is he here somewhere?
Oh, and he kind of, sits up and looks around. He's like, oh, he must be here somewhere. I know I've seen him and Ariadne around here somewhere. I'm sure that they're around. If I see them, I'll point them out to you. And with that, Bartholomew kind of laughs a little bit. It's like, you hear him mention something a little bit under his breath about Ariadne and how he's looking forward to seeing her again.
She sounds like quite a girl. Do you know what she's dressed in tonight?
Bartholomew says, oh, yes, she's in this very lovely silver gown. And yes, by what you said, she is a pretty, an interesting woman. He kind of looks at you and smiles and says, she's a free love advocate. Quite modern for a woman, but then again, she is European, so one would expect that.
Well, they're sometimes a little more free with those sorts of things. We are, after all, our country was founded by Puritans, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly, and he kind of laughs with that. With that, he kind of stands up. Apley stands up and goes over to the bar. Says something about how he wished that they would expand their offerings, but then he grabs the nearest bottle, kind of pours it into his drink, and says, "But this surely does the trick." And kind of laughs. And Thaddeus, you're standing right there, and he kind of nudges you a little bit, stumbles as he does.
Oh, watch out there.
Careful, fella.
Oh, don't worry. Sorry. And with that, he kind of stumbles back.
I kind of have to dodge out of the way, which is a little hard to do because I'm in heels, which puts me over 6 feet. So, I'm sorry.
And with that, he kind of smiles at you, and just kind of takes another drink, and with that, kind of smacks back down into the couch, the drink kind of spilling over him a little bit. With that, Portman apologizes and says, I'm sorry, my friend here, he obviously enjoys the drink. Please pay him no mind. Apologize for him.
Certainly. Well, thank you for talking to me. I'm going to wander around a bit, see if I can find Mr. Zoltan and his lovely daughter or niece.
Yes. With that, Harvey, you've kind of walked into the library. You said that you're kind of looking around, looking to kind of eavesdrop on the conversations and check out the books that are there.
Exactly. So I'm babying a fake drink and just browsing books, but my main intent is to eavesdrop.
Okay. There are really two groups of men in here kind of talking. There, 3 of the men are kind of in the southwest corner of the the room. They're talking baseball. You can hear that it sounds like it's kind of almost like a battle between some Yankees and Red Sox fans talking, kind of jiding each other over how the Sox got rid of Babe Ruth, and you hear one guy says, "Well, they should have never sold Ruth." One other gentleman laughs and says, "Oh, it's too late now." And the first gentleman goes, "Well, I'm going to say it now. They're cursed. I curse them right now. They won't win a series again this century. The curse of the Bambino." With that, he takes another big drink. But they seem to be, just kind of talking about that. The other group, and this would be the group which you wouldn't necessarily know this, but this is the group that Professor Morgan is in. You can also hear them talking about, it seems that they're talking about politics, specifically that they feel that the current Miskatonic University president should run for mayor, or that there's rumors that he's going to be running for town mayor here shortly. And they seem to be, conversing around that. Looking around the room itself, you see that there are a lot of nicer books, nothing that you would consider super expensive though. Nothing really old, nothing first edition or anything like that. And as you're doing this, Garland, you kind of walk into the room as well. Like I said as well, to the north of you, the next room over is a conservatory. It is glass. It's very dark out there. That basically the only light out there is from the ambient light from this room. You can make out that there are 2 or 3 people in there that seem to be talking, but you can't really, see for sure just because of the difference in lighting.
As I'm muted, some cat is in here. It has my tongue. I will walk past them and out to the conservatory. Okay.
So you start walking out there. As this is all going on, Thaddeus, Glenda is just talking your ear off. She is, she keeps talking to you, pulling you close whenever you try to walk away a little bit, trying to get to know you. You get very much the feeling that she is really looking for for somebody to kind of be her companion through the party.
Yes, Glenda. Since you are the experienced Bacchanalian and I am not, perhaps you can show me around the place.
Oh, I would love to. So you said you've never been to one of these before, so you don't know what goes on then, do you?
I only know that the parties are notorious.
Yes, they are. They're, some might say they're scandalous, and she kind of giggles when she says that. And she goes, "Well, to let you know, later on tonight, Ariadne will ring a gong from the foyer. We're all supposed to gather in there, and that's when we have the invocation of Bacchus, which must be some Hungarian ritual or festival or something like that. It's quite fun. She kind of puts her hands on your shoulder. I'll walk you through it. Don't worry. But with that, and she kind of turns a little bit red when she says this. She says, Ariadne at that point chooses somebody from the crowd to be her. She kind of pauses for a second, turns a little bit more red, her companion, and they go upstairs, and you can imagine what they do from there. Nothing that I would ever do, of course. I couldn't imagine, but you know how Europeans are, much more free thinking than us Americans.
Yes, notoriously so. And the Bacchus thing goes back thousands of years. It's in other parts of the world, it's not at all scandalous. You said this is your 3rd or 4th week, Glenda?
Yes, I've been coming here for a couple weeks. Have met many, many interesting people. A lot of the people here have been coming for a number of times. Once you come to one party, you want to come. You want to keep enjoying yourself and coming back.
And once Ariadne chooses her bacchanalian partner of the evening, what does everyone else do?
We just continue on with the party. The party will go on for hours after that. There's drinking and music and dancing, and it's just a lovely, great time.
And you leave at dawn in tatters?
No, nothing like that. Although we have come out or left a couple times once the sun has come up. The parties can go very late at night. It's I've heard the police have shown up once or twice, but once Zoltan talks to them, they tend to leave us alone. It's all in good fun, you understand.
I hope you can introduce me to one of the hosts, but let's do a spin around. Who was the lucky fellow last week?
I don't recall, actually. I know many of the gentlemen here have been wanting to be her choice, and she actually kind of stands up and looks around. I don't recall his name, and I don't see him here this week. That's kind of odd.
Well, maybe the tour will run across one of the lucky fellows. Does she have a likely lineup, like the top three and the top?
I'm sure there are definitely some gentlemen here who have been hoping so. And she kind of turns her back to Apley, who's sitting there drunk on the couch, and kind of whispers into your ear, I know that Bartholomew here has been hoping, but let's face it, that's not going to happen. There are a couple others here. I think there is the one who I think has had her eye recently is a young man, Eugene, I think is his name. Mm-hmm. I think that might be right. I've only met him once.
Yes, the Sheckley boy. I know his parents.
Oh, okay.
They're very square people. They wouldn't understand. The first fellow that I met when I came in, Bates was his name.
Yes.
Said something about sharing and the family good fortune. Have they been in some way? Have the parties gotten fancier each week?
Yes, absolutely. Every week it seems to have more liquor, better music, better food. I think they're trying to make up for what they lost in Hungary. It's a horrible story. Although I don't think I could tell it, very well. Here, let's go find one of the Vargas and I'll introduce you and they can tell you the story. And with that, she kind of starts pulling you kind of in towards the direction of the foyer.
Keeper, I'm going to follow them because I need to hear this.
Okay. Garland, you were heading towards the conservatory. Harvey, you are in the library. Where are you going from there, or what are you doing?
If I see Garland pass by going by himself into the conservatory, I'll shadow from a distance just to make sure Garland's okay, but I'm not going to close enough to interfere with what Garland wants to do.
Okay. And Benjamin, what about you?
I'm wandering about, so I'm probably heading towards the library as Harvey's coming out of the library.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Garland, you are heading into the conservatory. Harvey, you can see him go in. Benjamin, as you are walking into the library, you can kind of see what I described as well. You hear the conversations as well, and can look around the room. Excuse me. Dr. Bentz and Thaddeus, as you are heading, as Glenda is pulling you into the foyer, we'll get to you in a second. But Garland, you head into the conservatory. This is basically like a glass windowed room that's built off of the back of the house. It's very nice out here. It's actually even right now in the evening, you can kind of feel the warmth as you go into the room that collected throughout the day from the sun. There are a lot of plants in this room. It's very nice. But as you walk into the room, you see three people. You see a gentleman. The gentleman looks fairly young, maybe a little bit older than you, maybe like 4 or 5 years older than you, although he has completely silver gray hair. The two women look fairly young, late 20s. One is a blonde and one is a brunette, and they're just kind of sitting there entranced by this gentleman. And you hear him speak as you walk into the room. You hear him speak in a very thick German accent. Believe me, there's nothing to fear. Sometimes things happen we don't expect. And then he sees you and kind of cuts it short. And as he sees you and turns to the woman and says, but we'll try again another evening. I'm sure we'll have more success. And with that, he kind of turns to you and says, good evening, Gerhard Winch, professional spiritualist at your service. And as that, he kind of reaches out his hand and bows slightly to you.
Oh, pleased to meet you, Gerhard. Sorry, I seem to be a little bit turned around with these noise as a way of stimulating the nerves, I suppose.
Oh yes, especially at these parties with the music. And I apologize for any people who actually can do a German accent out there. But he continues on and said, "Yes, I came into this room just because the piano was so very loud, ringing in my ears. You know how it is."
Yes, I suppose it's a little hard to contact any spirits with such a ruckus.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he says, are you new to these parties? I don't remember seeing you.
Yes, this would be my first time.
Ah, well, welcome. I'm sure the Vargas are around here. I'm sure you know them if you've gotten invited. Myself, this is my second or third party.
How did you come across the Vargas yourself?
Oh, Ariadne. She found me, well known in town, you see, and so she wanted a little bit of entertainment. Being a spiritualist, always willing to show my capabilities, my skills, and so I've been coming a couple of times to assist her with that.
Oh, so you've had a bit of a one-on-one with her, it would seem, or just the general party?
General party. We've had we've done a seance or two in the past, but all in good fun to really more entertain everyone. But let's talk of something else. And with that, you at this point you kind of notice that the two women kind of get bored with this conversation, and so they kind of wander back into the library. And those who are in the library see these two women come in. And then he says, "Well, what do you do, sir, Mr. Vandermolen? You said."
Yes, I'm currently a student of law.
How fascinating! What type of law will you be performing?
Oh, business.
Well, I'm sure the Vargas would love to talk to you. They're exiles from Hungary. Trying to get their lands and their rightful titles back. I'm sure that they can use a great lawyer like you. And with that, he kind of lifts his glass and says, if you don't mind, a toast to our wonderful hosts, the Vargas, to them and all like them.
Cheers.
Cheers. And clinks it and just kind of downs his glass.
So, Gerhard, how do you find these parties yourself beyond your seance and finding new clientele? Is it you seem to be coming back. You must enjoy it quite a bit.
Oh yes, absolutely. It's a great time. I've come to like the Vargas, come to meet a lot of interesting people here. So it really makes sense to just come back. I mean, everybody needs to unwind a little bit,
Of course, I got in touch with the Vargas through a couple of friends, but I can't seem to find them.
Oh, they're around here somewhere. I don't see Zoltan, fortunately, of course, but Ariadne, I think I saw in the parlor or somewhere else. I'm sure they're around here. And he kind of starts looking around and just acts like he doesn't see anyone.
But my other friends I know, have you seen Eugene anywhere?
Eugene? No, I'm sorry. I don't know anyone by that name. Is he a friend of yours?
He is. I was hoping to see him here.
No, I don't see him, or I don't know who that is. But this is a very large house. There are lots of people here. Who knows who you might run into.
Yes, well, I suppose I will stop bothering you and let you get back to communing with the dead, I suppose.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, here, before you go, and he kind of reaches into his pocket, he pulls out and gives you a business card on it that says Gerhard Vinch, spiritualist and advisor, and gives you his phone number.
Oh, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And Harvey and Benjamin, you can kind of see Garland talking to this gentleman. You see the two women come into the room, and they kind of start moving through the room, going to the sitting room, most like they're going to get a drink. With that, Sybil and Thaddeus, Glenda is pulling you into the she pulls you through the foyer into the room to the next of the foyer, which is the parlor. Inside that room, you see two couples kind of sitting around a table. Just like the rest of the house, the parlor is fairly nice. It's definitely more sedate in here. You can definitely hear the music from the piano, but there's a door to your north that you can hear some. It sounds like a phonograph being played. In fact, as you look to the north, you can see two couples dancing. It looks almost like it's a dining room. But in this room, it's a little bit more sedate. You have the two couples kind of sitting around talking. You have a gentleman who's kind of standing in the corner. He's kind of, holding his drink, looking around. It looks like he's looking around for somebody. And as Glenda pulls you in, you see a gentleman walk into the room. He looks like he's wearing a very nice shirt, or a very nice suit. He has graying hair. He looks like he's in his maybe late 50s, early 60s. And as he enters the room, Glenda kind of perks up and says, "Oh, well, there's Zoltan. Let me introduce you." And she starts to lead you to him. Sybil, I assume that you're going to be following him.
Yes, I will be.
Okay. So as you get close, you can see how as Zoltan walks into the room, you can see the gentleman who's kind of brooding in the corner. He kind of perks up a little bit and begins to move towards Zoltan. But then Zoltan sees Glenda bringing you there and kind of ignores the other gentleman and makes a direct line to you. And as he does, I cannot do a Hungarian accent, but he's speaking in a very good Hungarian accent. He says, Glenda, it's so good to see you again. And I see that you've brought friends. With that, he reaches out his hand and says, kind of clicks his heels, does a short bow, and introduces himself as Zoltan Varga, and welcomes you into his house.
Thank you. I understand it's Varga Zoltan where you come from, yes?
Yes, I've been trying to adopt the American convention, so I apologize. You seem very knowledgeable about my country.
Oh, I'm sadly not at all, but you can call me Vandermolen Thaddeus. if we were in the old world.
Well, thank you, Mr. Thaddeus. It's so good to meet you. And he turns to Sybil and kind of reaches out to grab your hand and leans down and kisses it and says, "And you, madam, would be."
I say in perfect Hungarian, Bentz Sybil, a professor of history at Miskatonic.
He kind of smiles very brightly and responds to you in Hungarian, saying, the one who understands and speaks my language. It's so nice to have a cultured woman within our walls here. Please welcome." Mm-hmm. He says, "How did you come to the house? Did Ariadne give you an invitation?"
Friends of friends.
Okay.
My son is at college with one of the young fellows who's been visiting.
I see. Well, regardless, all are welcome here in our house. We are so glad you are here. Arkham has been such a welcoming community. If my niece and I should fail to recover our home in Hungary, we certainly look forward to settling here in Arkham. Everybody has been so welcoming.
And your hospitality is most generous.
Oh, thank you.
I'm surprised, given your status, that you haven't been introduced among the finer houses of town, but had to sort of make your own ways socially.
Yes, well, you know how it is. It's when you first arrive in a new city, especially when you're a foreigner. It's difficult to meet everyone, and there's always that. There's always that stigma of somebody being from the outside, so it is difficult. But we are making our ways, as you can see here. There are a number of well-to-do gentlemen and ladies, and kind of smiles at Dr. Bentz as he says that, and we're so glad for everybody here. And I apologize. What do you do for a living, sir?
I collect things mostly these days, and my family made its money some time ago, and I was unable to defend your empire or combat it during the war due to personal injury. I maintain business interests.
Okay. Everybody must maintain their interests. He smiles and he looks at Dr. Bentz and says, "And for a very cultured lady, I suspect that you work at the university. Is that correct?"
I do. As I mentioned, I'm a professor of history, but I specialize actually in Hungary.
Oh, interesting. So you know a lot of my country and where we come from. Excellent. I will have to say you must speak to Ariadne then. She has been absolutely indoctrinating herself into the American culture. And I fear that she's forgetting about what it's like in the old country, being away as long as we have.
How long is that, may I ask?
We were chased out of our home 5 years ago. She was a young girl of 18 at the time, which admittedly is not so young, but still, coming to America, learning English. I knew English at the time, but she did not, so she's had to learn it. Going through all of that with such a horrible time in our country's history, it has played a part on her. Fortunately, her mother and father died during the war, so I've been taking care of her since, and was fortunate enough to get her out of the country. We're just, again, hoping that we can raise enough funds to go back and get our homestead and our possessions back from the thieves and interlopers who have taken them.
Well, with any luck, that shall happen. But in case it doesn't, I'm sure you know the old saying: when a large door closes, a smaller one opens.
Absolutely, he laughs, and he kind of looks around the room, and he continues the conversation with you for about a minute or so, and then says, "You must excuse me. I have other guests that I need to attend to," and so he kind of walks out of the room. for those in the library, and Garland, you've kind of come back in from the conservatory at this time. As you're in the library, the group of gentlemen that are discussing politics, they are just kind of talking, and you see one of the gentlemen. Well, let me ask, Professor Bentz, would you have pointed out the Professor Morgan to everybody?
Well, I probably, because I believe one of the investigators was at the bar for a bit. I might have, made a mention of Professor Morgan's in the library, archaeology.
Okay. So for the three that are in the library, as you are in there, you're kind of looking around, listening to the conversations, maybe joining into a couple. You see one of the waitresses, a young girl. Garland, this is actually the same girl who was talking to you. Early 20s, blonde. If you had to guess, she's probably a student at Miskatonic. Comes into the room. And she goes to serve the gentleman, including Professor Morgan, drinks. And as she does, she stops. And you can see her and Professor Morgan kind of step off to the side, and they're kind of exchanging some words with each other. And then she just grabs one of the half-empty drinks, throws it in his face, and yells, "You pig, to hell with you and your stupid class." And she throws the drinks on the floor, making this huge commotion, takes off her apron, throws it to the floor, and starts to leave the room. As she does, you turn around and you're following her. As she's walking out of the room, you see her walk past this very beautiful woman in her 30s wearing a silver dress, and she kind of looks at you all, smiles this very beaming smile, and says, "Well, you just can't get good help these days," in a perfect Hungarian accent.
Yes, it is. Arkham could be quite a troublesome locale for that. I don't believe we've been introduced. I'm Garland Vandermolen.
And she takes a step forward and grabs your hand, smiles, and says, "Ariadne Varga." And with that, we will end for tonight.
Our players included David Gasaway, Stuart Lively, Jen Obertaz, Morgan Llewellyn, and myself, with Tyler Hudak as the Keeper of the Secrets. We have a Discord server where you can chat with our other members. You can set up private games, and you can learn the finer arts of gameplay and game mastering. There's a link below. We provide audio-only versions of our shows free for you to download from Podbean or iTunes. If you'd like to support our show, please visit our Patreon account. Just $1 a month helps us a lot. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and punch the bell icon for updates on our latest shows, and leave us some comments. We enjoy reading them and answering any questions you might have. This is Tom Rayleigh, together with all the members of our gaming club, inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure into the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Until next time, good luck and good gaming.
Just cast an eye while fire her direction. Oh me, oh my, that perfection. I repeat, don't you think that's kind of neat? I ask you confidentially, ain't she sweet?